have been able to do, how gruesome it is when the supposed party of reform, or the party of change, or the party of the poor, or the party of the people, signs on to every pathetic abracadabra of the establishment and the ruling class and the consensus. Because when that party does that, it means that the possibility of opposition has been foreclosed. That there is a consensus whether you want it or not, or especially whether you voted for it or not. It's a consensus that is achieved by people who are willing to pay to have one, which not everyone can do.
Mr. Hitchens is I've known him for nearly 30 years, and we're very good friends, and so I came to support my pal.
And you still share the same
politics?
Yes.
But he was always much more, when I first met him, he was a proselytizing Trotskyist, who sold the Daily Worker with James Fenton on the Kilburn High Street every Saturday morning, whereas I was a kind of Osric figure, pop, non-political. Christopher Hitchens said many years ago when the Cold War was ending, he said, and when the unions were bust by Margaret Thatcher, he said, the trouble with England is all the piss and vinegar's gone out of it, you know.
The paper that Hitchens used to sell in Kilburn was actually Socialist Worker and not the Daily Worker. In those days, the distinction between far-left factions was far more important. Hitchens belonged to the International Socialists, a group of dissident Marxist revolutionaries, as hostile to the Communist Party and the Soviet Union as they were to Wall Street and Downing Street. Although his membership lapsed 20 years ago, he's still close enough to his comrades in the renamed Socialist Workers' Party to have a good family row, in this case over military action in Kosovo.
The morality of invading and bombing for human rights.
I noticed that invasion, a pejorative word in your vernacular, sir, is not applied so far to the Serbs. I think I know what's behind this. There are a lot of people who simply don't believe that a NATO country or a capitalist country can be a moral agent at all. After all, if they cared, why wouldn't they care about Tibet, Rwanda, Palestine? Yeah, we've heard all that. Yeah. Yeah, believe me, look, I can make that case. In fact, I have made it in my sleep. We don't have to be awake to make it, after all. Right? Since we can't do everything, why don't we do nothing? Right? Since we didn't help the Rwandans, and no one in the peace movement said we should, militarily, why should we help Kosovo? Live with that if you can, but don't fucking call me an imperialist for pointing it out, okay? Get real.
Two people, right?
Body bag peace movement. It's contemptible. I remember being part of it. I remember fighting. No, I remember fighting the Viet Cong. I would do it all again. Matter of principle. Matter of principle. Take the side of the victim. Support their struggle. You're just looking for a quiet life for liberalism. I hope you don't get it. Don't ask that. Don't be a follower. Don't look for a leader. If he could lead you into the promised land, he could lead you out. Do your own thinking. And dispense with these characters who, with SDI, and with Serbia, and with China, and with all these other countries, show that they think of you as completely dispensable statistics, as people who are disposable and so on, and learn instead to think of the leaders in the same way as they think of you. That would be progress. That would be progress.
Excuse me.
I just thought I would thank everyone for coming and say how touching it is that people will take a minute from a working day to do something that our government won't do for us, which is quite simply to say that we know who our friends and our allies are, and they should know that we know it, and that we take the stand of democracy against dictatorship. And when the embassies of democracies are burned in the capital cities of dictatorships, we think the State Department should denounce that and not denounce the cartoons. Yeah! Yeah! And fed up with the invertebrate nature of our State Department. If we had time, brothers and sisters, we, I think, should have gone from here to the Embassy of Iraq to express our support for another country that is facing a campaign of lies and hatred and violence. And we would, if we did that, we would say that we knew blasphemy when we saw it. We knew sacrilege when we saw it. It is sacrilegious to blow up beautiful houses of worship in Samara. That would be worth filling the streets of the world to protest about.
Yeah.
We are not for profanity nor for disrespect, but we are, and without any conditions or any ifs or any buts, for free expression at all times and in all places. And our solidarity is with those who are for that. We said we would, I told the Danish embassy that we would disperse at 1 o'clock. I hope and believe we've made our point. I hope and believe that Danish TV will have some more agreeable features, such as your own, to show, instead of the faces of violence and hatred and fascism. And I think I can just close by saying, solidarity with Denmark, death to fascism. To whom you would delegate the task of deciding for you what you could read? To whom you would give the job of deciding for you, relieve you of the responsibility of hearing what you might have to hear? Do you know anyone? Hands up. Do you know anyone to whom you'd give this job? Does anyone have a nominee? You mean there's no one in Canada good enough to decide what I can read or hear? I had no idea. But there's a law that says there must be such a person, or there's a subsection of some piddling law that says it. Well, the hell with that law then. It's inviting you to be liars and hypocrites and to deny what you evidently know already. About the censorious instinct, we basically know all that we need to know, and we've known it for a long time. It comes from an old story about another great Englishman, sorry to sound so particular about that this evening, Dr. Samuel Johnson, the great lexicographer, author of the first, compiler, I should say, of the first great dictionary of the English language. When it was complete, Dr. Johnson was waited upon by various delegations of people to congratulate him, of the nobility, of the quality, of the commons, of the lords, and also by a delegation of respectable ladies of London who attended on him in his Fleet Street lodgings and congratulated him. Dr. Johnson, they said, we are delighted to find that you have not included any indecent or obscene words in your dictionary. Ladies, said Dr. Johnson, I congratulate you on being able to look them up. Anyone who can understand that joke, and I'm pleased to see that about 10% of you can, gets the point about censorship, especially prior restraint, as it's known in the United States, where it's banned by the First Amendment to the Constitution. It may not be determined in advance what words are apt or inapt.
No. Here the question is,
yes.
We don't sort of see this behavior in ant holes, and it is complicated, but how do you feel that you're using borrowed capital a lot when you express outrage? Because salt and pepper in my my medical lab don't fight each other. They don't, when I mix them, they don't get angry if I reach my hand into someone's abdomen and rip out their liver.
Good grief.
Exactly.
What are you talking
exactly. So I hope the question, as much as I stuttered, is I'm ready to just hear what you thought.
Yeah, no, look, please don't be put off by my low humour or attracting any laughter. I mean, you make a perfectly, to me, respectable point. There are some mysteries that I'm quite content not to know the answer to. For example, yes, of course I'm a materialist. I believe I'm made of atoms. The fact that there was no me 59 years ago doesn't terrify me at all. There was, as far as there was a void where I might be, later was. There'll later be similar void, slightly fatter. It has the same effect on me as it did on David Hume.
Sure.
Those are the breaks. That is, in fact, the situation. It's childish to pretend otherwise.
No,
my friend Sam Harris, author of one of the better books of the Musketeer team, is in fact some kind of Buddhist. He does think, and he's a neuroscientist, he does think that we're having a great argument with him in pages of Free Inquiry, because we don't excommunicate each other. We asked him to sign up to say why he thinks there could be consciousness independent of the brain. It's a very interesting argument. I have no preconception about it. I have a strong feeling it's unlikely. Whether it's true or not, that would remain with me as a mystery. The following: why do I care? Why do I bother? Why do I mind about Darfur? Why would I feel impelled, even if I found a wallet stuffed with money on the back seat of a cab and no one had noticed, to see if what I can do about giving it back? Why have I got some wallets back that way myself? I know it's a bit reductionist to say that without this capacity for solidarity, as I call it, empathy, the human species couldn't be having this discussion anyway. If this wasn't innate in us, we wouldn't be here. I don't. I mean, I believe people who tell me they've seen ghosts, for example, and had visions of the Virgin Mary. I have no reason to doubt. I think they saw them, but they weren't there.
No, I'm not talking about those kind of experiences.
You mean conversion experiences? People say, now I will finally, the President of the United States says, I will exchange Jack Daniels for Methodism. A trade I cannot imagine anyone making. Because Jesus told me I should do it. Well, I think that Laura Bush said, listen, and it's been said before in Texan society, it's Jack Daniels or me, asshole. And if you do that again, I'll leave and I'll take the kids. You say, Jesus got me off the drink, fine. I said already, whatever floats the boat. Just leave me out of it. I don't want to hear this stuff, and it doesn't give you the right to tell me what to do. How many times must I say? How many times already? How long, oh Lord, how long? Uncertain hope of resurrection. These are the beliefs on which monotheism has based itself and upon which it continues to exert its extraordinary and lethal power. And I won't take your offer. Rabbi, I can't take it. I can't say all they're talking about is posthumous fame. All they're talking about is reputation. After all, people still read Shakespeare. Surely that proves that there's an afterlife. No, I'm sorry. It's a confusion of categories. It's not comparing like with like. It's not even non-overlapping magisterial. It's radically discrepant views of what reality is. And if religion would say, we don't promise you anything after death, that would be the end of it. And Shmuley would be talking ethical Judaism, and I would be saying, atheism is compatible with any belief you like. You can be an atheist and be a supporter of Ayn Rand, the most famous atheist in America. You can be an atheist and a nihilist. You can be an atheist and a fascist. All you have to do is say that you reject the supernatural dimension. But that's the most crucial thing. And now the critique of religion that we've evolved over the years in mortal combat with it is this, essentially. First, that it has a very queasy relationship with anything called evidence. That it makes very, very large claims for itself. Perhaps Rabbi Shmuley won't choose this evening to do so, but it claims to talk in terms of redemption, of salvation, and even of eternity. And there's an inverse relationship between what it claims and the amount of evidence that it can muster. And that this is its original, if you like, sin. Second, that it seems to deal in absolutes, that it appears to want us to think of a God who is in some way or another a dictator in this world, and if this one should prove disappointing, I think you used the word dress rehearsal, the term dress rehearsal, a mere ante-room. If you think this is unfair, if you think this is discrepant, if you think this is irrational, why do the evil prosper? Why do the good get trampled underfoot and left behind? Never mind. Once you've squeezed with agony through the keyhole of death, there's another whole world where all that will be put right, where every tear will be dried and every injustice compensated, which, if it was true, would be a terrible exercise in sadomasochism. Why put a bunch of rats into a labyrinth of torture? See how they do, surprise them with new rules, even bigger surprise when you squeeze them through that last gap. Now we have you, and now you're due for a verdict against which there is no appeal. The church and regular appearances at its festivals, there may be an element of remission too, and only now is it being discussed that St. Augustine's vile idea that the souls of unbaptized children may not go to hell but go to an indefinite misery of limbo until the second coming may possibly not have been the way, quite the tone of voice in which to speak to parents who'd lost their child. I'm not neutral about this. I don't think those statements are what they clearly are, man-made, silly, pathetic, mediocre, and erroneous. That is a job within the compass of anyone in this room or beyond. No, I go further. It's an evil doctrine. It's a wicked doctrine. It proceeds from people who want, quite wisely and quite shrewdly, real power over real human beings of a really absolutist sort in the only world we've got, which is the here and now. How smart they are to do it, how overdue we are to tell them that we reject this totalitarian interpretation